Good evening, everyone. At this time, I'd like to recognize Miss Debbie Baker.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this gorgeous day that you've given us, Lord, and for letting us all be here. We know that everyone is here for a purpose, Lord, and you have a purpose for each of us. And Lord, I just pray as we conduct the business of District 1 that you give us wisdom, Lord, that you give us insight, that you help us as we cooperate with each other and try to move forward for the best for the district. I pray that as some of the employees are on summer break, that you would just refresh the teachers, Lord, give them physical strength and just a refreshing, even if they're working, Lord, just refill them so that they're ready to pour into our students. And Lord, I just pray you bless our administration, our families, Lord, that you would strengthen them, that you would help them to remain strong and support their students. And Lord, we just love you and praise you, and we ask everything in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Miss Baker. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Board of Trustees meeting for June the 12th, 2023 at 7 p.m. We'll call this meeting to order. If you would, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first item on the agenda tonight is public participation. We have Ms. Sherwood that has requested to speak. We have 5 minutes to speak. Your remarks should be directed to the chair of the board as a whole and not to the individual board members. You may offer objective comments on school operations and programs. However, the board will not allow in public session any expression of personal attacks against any person connected with the school system. The board vests in the chair its authority to determine whether or not a speaker is acting within these provisions. As such, the chair has full authority to rule a speaker out of order and terminate the remark should these procedures not be followed. Board members will not engage in discussions with speakers, take questions, or take action relative to any comments. However, all concerns and comments will be appropriately considered. Ms. Sherwood?
Thank you. The board, can you hear me okay? Excuse me. I appreciate the opportunity to comment today, and I ask that my comments be duly noted in the official board minutes. I would like to start by saying that the school board, as I understand it, exists to conduct the business of the district. And as such, our elected representatives, they do such important things as approve the budget, set policy, and hire a superintendent. Your meetings, of course, are public on the whole, and you, therefore, are the link between the public and the administration. Recently, I know you've spent a lot of your activity and time in hiring a new administrator. And finding, hiring, and transitioning takes a lot of effort and time. I understand that. However, I think sometimes other important things get ignored or deteriorate while you're focusing so much on one thing. As a member of the public, I assure you that I really am truly vested in having the best district that we can have. And to me, that means best practices, best outcomes. And I'd like to share some concerns that I have. Number one is communication. Sometimes you'll communicate with a board member or with the district and be ignored. And I'm talking about emails, texts, questions go unanswered or incompletely answered. The State Ethics Commission. There currently is a hearing scheduled for one of you members of the board. And this relates to a vote that you took earlier this year. The State Attorney General's office. The State Attorney General is being asked to issue an opinion related to the way a recent FOIA request has been handled. the audit committee. The audit committee, as you recall, was formed, I forget how many years ago, 2, 3, and was instituted as a requirement from the state because of the financial situation. And this year, it seems that they never met. In talking with the auditor, I understand everybody got the audit at the same time, and it was 5 or 6 weeks ahead of when you presented it. And there was never any public meeting where they did their process of reviewing as they're required to do. Now, I know you're getting rid of the other committees for now, and I understand that the audit committee will stand, and I am happy to hear that. I think that's a very important committee to continue on. Another one, and you've heard this one before, is no documents were presented when there's a board meeting held. It's never been the custom, even though the chairman has been asking for, 2 years now? Or stating that documents will be shared with the public, it never gets done. And what happens is you have to officially request them, and then that can take some time and effort, and certain things will be eliminated from the pile, and you're told they're not public. One example is draft minutes, that they are not public. I was told by somebody in this room that draft minutes are never released. However, you still have draft minutes for the last budget hearing, and they're posted on the website. They don't say draft on them, though. For some reason, in addition, regarding the Freedom of Information process, the new superintendent, Superintendent Smith, has gone ahead and engaged an attorney to handle much of this work. This is Kenneth Darr, Jr., and he seems to be handling some of the FOIA requests, maybe not all. But I'd like to tell you about a few of the requests that have come back from him. Number one is somebody asked for emails. He sent them back with every attachment redacted. He didn't ask and have a conversation. You know, somebody asking for emails was under the impression that that included attachments, and that didn't happen. He also had a request to get the information on his own legal invoices. And he has earned close to $20,000 in the last few months at the district. And they came back with no information other than what you could get from the checkbook. He redacted the hourly rate, the number of hours worked, the name of the attorney who did the work, any expenses that were paid, and the general reason for retaining an attorney. And this is another pattern with him. He even redacted the reason, the places for field trips when asked for some information. When you post them on
Sherwood,
Facebook pages.
5 minutes is up.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the chairman's report. This consists of the consent agenda, which is the approval of tonight's agenda, approval of the minutes from May the 8th, 2023, approval of invoices, and approval of overnight field trips. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Mark Smith.
Yes, sir. I'm going to take the other podium. Just give me 1 second. I didn't know we were going to get to celebrate in the summertime, so we've got some more celebrations. And Keegan Flynn, the principal at Landrum High School, I've told our principals that I would love for them to come when they can to board meetings, but they don't have to because I know they're so busy. And poor Keegan has been to every board meeting since I've been here because they keep having these great folks from Landrum that are recognized. And I know we'll be having a lot of the Chapman folks next year. It's your turn this time, Keegan. But got so much to celebrate. I'd like to start with one of our amazing teachers. And this is the fun part of the job because they're hard things we do every day, and I'm glad to do them because this is why I'm standing here, to honor people like James Farnham and our children out there that are winning state championship after state championship and smiling every day at school and bringing joy back to our community. I am just so fired up. So it is wonderful to come celebrate and do the good things that we're doing. Because let's don't lose focus for 1 second. There is so much good going on in Spartanburg District 1, and it is fun to tell our story, and I'm so excited. But let me start, Mr. James Farnham. Don't come up yet. Let me get some good words going here first. Let me tell you about this guy. James is a STAR recipient. What's that? Strategies for Teacher Advancement and Renewal. It's a biannual reward and recognition program for outstanding South Carolina veteran teachers sponsored by the Foundation for Professional Development and Palmetto State Teachers Association. He will receive a week at Seabrook Island as well as have his substitute pay out of this honor. It's a great honor for James Farnham as well as Landrum High School. And before I have James come up, he was one of the first people that I met when I came up here to District 1, and his character goes before him. He is a loving, humble servant, and kids flock to his room and to where he's coaching. My first act as superintendent was trying to beg this guy to stay on as football coach as part of the staff at Landrum High School. I went to your class, did I not? We sat down in his social studies class, which is beautiful, by the way. You know you got a good teacher when they have kids' pictures everywhere. When you walk in a teacher's room and you see the kids' pictures, that's somebody that loves kids. And this young man right here loves kids well. Don't mean to get my finger pointing at you, but I'm very excited. And James, we're so proud of you. And he brought his lovely wife, Mary Catherine, here tonight, his better half. And we're just glad to have both of you. But please give a big round of applause for Mr. James Farnham. I think I might as well give up on looking tall. It just ain't gonna be me. The next group of folks I would like to recognize are our championship track athletes. And you know, it's tradition that we're bringing here, whenever we have state champions, whether that's team or individual sports, we will let them pick out what they want for us to buy them as a gift from the school board. So Billy, show them their what Miss Price picked out. The boy, they didn't let the boy pick. This was all Sydney right here. State champions, javelin, and track. And we've actually won it back-to-back years with these two students. And I don't think, is Cole here? Okay, Cole's not here. So we'll start. Would like to congratulate Miss Sydney Price. Sydney, come on down here while I'm talking about you. I met Sydney at a softball game at Landrum, and the girl had squirrels coming out of her clothes. And is that not a true story? Sydney, she takes care of these squirrels, and apparently she's a great softball player, and then I didn't realize she threw a javelin. So lucky, whoever dates her better be careful. She's got squirrels on her and throws javelins, so she's dangerous. But Sydney, you're outstanding. You're absolutely the role model of what we want in students in our district with your drive in academics and athletics. And to win javelin 2 years in a row, I just want to publicly recognize you. That is a huge accomplishment, and we're so very proud of you. Let's give a big round of applause for Miss Sydney Price. And Cole could not make it today, but I do want to publicly recognize Mr. Cole Johnson from Landrum High School. He has also won the Javelin State Championship the last 2 years, 2022 and 2023. And as far as I know, he doesn't have any pet squirrels. Does he? Okay. But would like to recognize Cole. Next, we have an outstanding athletic director, Mr. Mike Gentry, that pours in countless hours and time into our students at Landrum. Mike, please come on down, and a big round of applause for Mike. And last but not least, Mr. Ken Wenzel could not be with us tonight, and he is our track and field coach for Landrum, and we like to thank him for all the investment into our children. So give Ken a big round of applause. as tall as Mike, but I got more hair, so I can at least stand beside him. And last but not least, just stand up, Mom. Sandy Price, that's Sydney's mom. Just always like to recognize parents. Big round of applause for Mom. Could not happen without parents. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my superintendent report.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Next item on the agenda is our personnel report by Dr. Trish Beeson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are no new retirements for approval at this time. I would like to recommend the board accept the resignations effective at the end of the 22-23 school year, which were included in your board packet.
Okay, we have the recommendation to accept the resignations as submitted in the board packet. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the resignations in our board packet.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Rollins. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Fowler. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I would like to recommend that you accept and approve employment for the 23-24 school year of the new hires, which was also included in your board packet.
We have a motion to accept and approve the new hires for the 23-24 school year as presented in our board packet. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the new hires listed in our board packet.
Motion by Mr. Rollins. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Rogers. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Beeson. The next item on our agenda is our policy report by Ms. Jada Tesnier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Dr. Smith, board members. At this time, we will review our policies. For second reading, you have AA, AC, ACE, ADA, ADAR, ADB, ADC, ADF, and ADFR. There were no changes between the first and second reading. Is there any discussion? At this time, administration recommends for a second and final reading.
Okay. We have the recommendation for the second and final reading of the aforementioned policy sections. In section A, is there a motion?
I move that we accept the policy recommendation of the administration for section A.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? I'll second. Second by Ms. Rogers. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, it would be a first reading and discussion for some updated policies. And we will take these one by one, board members, if that's okay, since it is new. At first, we will do board operational goals, BA. Is there any discussion?
Yes, ma'am. I think we've already talked a little bit about this, but so that bring it before the board. The first paragraph after, there's a one-sentence paragraph, but so I guess it's the second paragraph. I would suggest that we strike the first sentence. And then my only other question is down in the bullet statements, to identify the educational and technological needs of the community and to transform such needs into programs aimed at preparing students for future careers. I just wonder if that's more of an administration than should be board policy. It just struck me as maybe not the framework, but the actual doing of the programs. That was just my thoughts. I don't know how y'all feel about that. Those are the only two things.
What was the sentence you asked?
The first sentence of the board will function in a nonpartisan manner, and each member will allow his or her consideration for the entire district to take precedence over every form of partisanship and special interest, political, racial, religious, geographic, economic, social, civic, or other. And I think that is in our ethics, and I guess my question is, if we act in a certain way, and it can be, someone could say, oh, well, that's because of your religious convictions. You made that vote based on your religious convictions. I just wonder legally if that's opening us up, saying something that would open us up to lawsuits, and it may not, but that's just how I take that as we're going to act. The next sentence says that we will provide the best possible educational program to address the educational needs of the students in the district, and will accomplish this goal by efficiently managing district resources. And it's, you know, the spirit of it is covered in other places. I just didn't, if we attended that school law conference, it just seems to me that saying too much sometimes gets you in trouble. You act in good faith, but if someone could say, I'm going to hang this on, you know, you're favoring Landrum over Chapman, even, that it's got geographic in there, you're opening up for a lot of different things, I think, my opinion.
Well, I think the statement that the board will function in a nonpartisan manner and each member will allow his or her consideration for the entire district to take precedence over every form of partisanship and special interest. I think most of that is valuable to that statement. I think we'd want it to stay.
Could we put a
or to be
period
as
right
part.
there? Because that doesn't really give me heartburn as much as where we, you know, lay out all of
Right.
I like that.
Ms. Tesnier, did you catch the nuance there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I would like to ask the board on the to identify the educational and technological needs of the community and to transform such needs into programs aimed at preparing students for future careers. Do y'all think that that should be in there, or that should be the board or more administrative? I mean, we are a liaison with the community and business members, so I can understand the part of identifying things and bringing them to administration, but it says that we will transform them into programs, and that's not
Yeah, that's our job.
right.
No, I
So-
agree.
So, and I thought today about how could we salvage the sentence in some way to show that this part is us and this part is us helping you prepare our students for future careers, but I didn't come up with anything good. Dr. Mathis is good at this. Wordsmithing.
We can
We
take
can
this
certainly-
feedback and make some corrections on that. And that's why it's good for first reading. This is a good time to get the feedback, so thank y'all.
Right, and procedurally, how I would like to do this is go through and receive comments on each of these policies and then approve a first reading with the recommended changes. And then we can take as many readings as we would like to get through that, but that gets us our first reading. That's just like a first draft.
All right, next we have BAA Board Self-Evaluation.
like the part that is stricken through, that Ms. Tesnier has stricken through. I like that not being I like that striking. On under adopted, on the last half of this, policy, I don't want to tie the hands of future boards if this is how you have to do your self-evaluation. I think it's valuable. So I'd like the first sentence to actually be the last sentence in the first paragraph. So the board believes that regular self-evaluation is essential to improving leadership, supporting student achievement, and attaining the district's vision, mission, guiding principles, and goals. And then back up to the first sentence as it is. Each school year, on or before the October board meeting, the board will engage in self-evaluation. And then the last paragraph to stand as it is following that. The board shall evaluate itself as a whole during the self-evaluation process. The self-evaluation should emphasize areas of strength as well as those identified for improvement. Board members are also encouraged to use the evaluation process as an opportunity to assess their own personal performance. I just thought if we name a tool that we'll use, that then if they change the name of that tool, or I would like, you know, we don't want to have to go back and change that. I don't know, Ms. Ross, how you guys handle that at the hospital, but
And I'm trying to find, what's the reference on this policy, do you know? Am I missing it?
the state or?
Is it the state?
There is no law.
No law.
No,
We don't-
ma'am.
No, and we don't currently have a policy.
And is
Regarding
this
this.
a practice that this board has participated in the past, would be my question.
This would be a new policy. It's one of the recommended policies from SCSBA.
Should we chunk it?
What is the primary purpose of the policy? Like,
It's just an adoption of a self-evaluation process. And, I would say it's probably, well, I can't speak for the whole state, but a lot of, school districts do use the template that SCSBA does. Whether or not they actually do go through the process, I think this is found in a lot of policies.
I think Spartanburg, I don't think anybody else in Spartanburg County has it.
I would say that this is a practice that we could use, but maybe the policy is a little bit more, would hold us to a different standard, because if you have it in policy, then I would be curious what after action you have, and if we have it in policy and don't follow through.
Yeah.
I think the self-evaluation is a good practice, but I don't know if I necessarily need a policy that would encourage me to do that.
I think you get evaluated every 4 years.
Right, yeah.
That's the
The
ultimate
ballot box
evaluation.
does evaluate, yes.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily a fan of beginning it, like you say, as a policy. I mean, we want to make it a practice, sure. I think our success should be gauged by the success of the district. Like I said, it's not going to help you hold a position or, you know, so.
And there's nothing that says, you know, the board can't act later to say, okay, yeah, we're comfortable with this process, we'd like to make it a policy. If we strike it now, that doesn't leave it out of consideration for the future.
Then my recommendation is we strike it.
And I would agree. Second. I don't know if we're voting.
All right, next we have policy BB, which is board legal status. Any discussion?
Yes, ma'am. You and I spoke about this. The last sentence of the first paragraph says, "The board is composed of 9 members who reside in designated areas within the boundaries of the county." And I wondered if we shouldn't put within the boundaries of Spartanburg District 1, because we do have some Greenville County areas. So that would not be as accurate as maybe it could be. I don't know if you know about, can people be on the board from Greenville County, Travis? Can they run for? they can.
I think District 1 would be the perfect qualifier
Mm-hmm.
to that.
That's the only change I saw, is that we're not divided like Spartanburg 5 into 5-1, 5-2, 5-3. We're just
I
District
think
1.
we are one of the few that do not have the residential qualifiers. Probably, yes, sir. So I don't, and I actually spoke to the school board attorney. Mm-hmm. So I don't foresee any problems with that because, as Ms. Baker and I discussed, I actually added Spartanburg School District 1 to another policy that we'll come up on. Are there any more suggestions for BB? All right. BBA, Board Powers and Duties. Any suggestions, discussion?
Under legislative and policy making, I like the way this is structured, by the way. It makes it, to me, especially as a new board member, it would be a lot easier to understand. The only question I had on the first page is that at some point Ms. Ross had talked about, when we were all doing policy committee, about it reevaluating annually, having someone assigned to every section of the policy so that the policy is reviewed every year, the entire policy manual, so that it doesn't get out of date. And I didn't know if we wanted to add something like that. It says continually reevaluated in terms of the changing needs and functions of the district. I don't know if we wanted to add evaluated annually. That was my thought there. And then on the second page, under provision of financial resources, the board will oversee the district's finances by authorizing, I would like to add reviewing right before authorizing. We're reviewing, authorizing, appropriating, and adopting a budget, and then everything else the same.
Okay.
And then under visits to schools, the law prescribes that we have to do it once a year, so that visits to schools or classrooms will occur once, at a minimum once per school year. That needs to be somewhere in there, I think.
Any more discussions?
I personally, going back to the review, we're investing a lot of money and time to update this manual. I do agree that we need to have a time frame. I don't know if it's annually here. That's what I'm accustomed to, and we have a monthly schedule with the list of policies that come up that month, and so then you keep up with law.
What happens, and that's great, and what I'm gonna do moving forward is Jada is in charge of that, so the state sends out these updates. And this is, I think, how we probably got to where we are, is that we didn't have somebody assigned in the administration constantly looking and updating. And so, winner, chicken dinner, Jada is the winner of policy. I know she's so excited. Look at that smile. And then that way, she will keep us moving forward and making sure we're on task. And we can put that in policy. I think that'd be, or just put it back to administration. We could write that in the policy, that administration would be, that y'all could hold me accountable for making sure that's done.
I'd be fine with it being a process, yeah. And on you guys, I just do think it's
Absolutely.
it's necessary.
Well, if we don't do it that way, we will end up here in
Again.
years. So yeah, that's a great point, and we can write that in there, Jada, that just the administration can be responsible for that.
And just if we add the visit to schools, whatever, we need to make sure we put that reference. I think references are important to keep up with as well. Is it already there?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't think that it's very explicit that it has to be one time a year, which is perfectly fine. All right, BBAAR. Let me backtrack. BBAA, yes, R. Board member authority and responsibilities.
I move that we strike the second paragraph in its entirety. and that is, if the information sought by individual board members is not readily available without an amount of staff effort that the superintendent deems significant, board members will be asked to obtain the approval of a majority of the board so that information requests do not result in unnecessarily high cost or district staff from their primary responsibilities. Under no circumstances will board members engage in an investigation of staff or student issues. There's been a similar policy that has been, I gave you the Attorney General opinion in the court case about this. This is not good policy. So I would like to see that, just us not go down that path. And then on the second page, I just thought the sentence at the end of the first paragraph just sounded a little snarky. I would like to strike that. Board members with personal legal questions to seek advice from their own private attorneys. I think that does go without saying. And that's all.
Mr. Chairman. I would be in support of the paragraph which states, just for the protection of the administration. There's 9 of us sitting here at the table. If every one of us has our own particular little interest that may or may not be valuable to the district, that's going to keep people busy and distracted from what we want them in the building doing. If like that, like it reads, if it's to the level that, yeah, there is interest by a few members of the board or majority of the board, then absolutely. But I just think it could get deep in the weeds for the administration that's already being pushed to serve the district in their positions. That's just my opinion.
This is what's tough about policy, because y'all don't even have, y'all want something, you just let me know. I'm not going, I mean, I don't ever want to be like y'all call me anytime. But I know I won't always be the superintendent, so I know that's why you have policy. But this is what gets me with policy, because you can't, to me, that just gets in the way, because y'all know right now you don't need any, you don't have to, y'all just call. But we can do whatever the will of the board wants to on that. We're just responding, we're just going with what the School Board Association gave us on that.
Yeah, so since there's a difference of opinion, we probably need to take a vote on this one, just so we give direction for staff for the second reading.
Before we vote, I have one other question on this, regarding this policy. So the first paragraph, the last sentence, when board members who seek additional information should make such requests to the superintendent, the last sentence says information provided as the result of such a request will be sent to each board member. I'm not sure that that's current practice, and I don't know if it needs, that's what's worrying me a little bit about that. If that's practice, that's fine, but we can't put something in policy that's not our practice. And I feel like I know there's information that's shared that maybe I don't know, but I don't necessarily need to. It's not like it's hidden from me. It's just not a question maybe I had. And so that seems a little bit overkill.
If it's a pertinent question for that board member, I would not call everybody, but if it's something that affects the group, then of course.
And that's what I was thinking.
So
If it
general
was,
to me.
if it was something that, let's say, Ms. Ross, you requested that may be beneficial for the entire board, that maybe somebody hadn't thought to ask. That was my take on that. But I understand your point.
Yeah, it's pretty black and white, and I just think it's a little bit maybe too much. There's not enough gray in this first paragraph for me.
So maybe just strike that sentence. information presented or provided.
I mean, it says it will be sent to each board member, and I don't think that's current practice.
I know it's not.
That is,
but
mm-mm.
It's a good catch.
But is this on requested information, or is this information, that you're sharing to us as far as, let's just say you had a situation with a student that we're gonna have a hearing about or something, you provide that information, would it not be, I can understand if there was question, I understand what you're saying, but if we're in beginning of possible hearings with a student, would it not be appropriate to share everything you have? Would that not have been included already, say new
That's right.
information? So, is there a way to protect us, to keep us informed of, it maybe April, Ms. Fowler will ask the right question, and you can respond, and it would help the whole board with their,
If anything's major, y'all are all gonna know about it.
yeah, that's kind of.
I guess like an easy example is just even the conversations that you have already had with Jada, about policy. I didn't need you to tell me, like, I don't need that to come official. And I think that I'm thinking about those simple things just like that, where y'all have had just discussions, and I don't want us to tie in a policy that makes it so hard. That when it's a simple, yes, I benefit from your knowledge.
I can see it both ways.
Yeah. If it's not our current practice, and that's what I'm hearing, and that's
yeah,
what I think
that's
I understand, it's dangerous to put it in policy.
And again, I think we can do that,
Mm-hmm.
but if you put it in policy and you miss it, then you're not following policy. Right.
It's too broad. If we can trim it down, if we can make this more specific with some additional wording, I think I'm requesting a look at this. For the second review, can we look at this a little bit
Yes.
deeper for this first
That's right.
paragraph?
Sounds good.
Any other comments relative to this particular policy?
I would just like to say that on the second paragraph, at one point, what one superintendent might deem significant, another might not. I think in order to protect board members, mostly this is gonna be fiduciary responsibilities, in my opinion. And I had some issue in the past with getting some information that I certainly, it was information needed to make a budget decision, which is certainly our purview. So I would like to protect, that is our responsibility to the public. And if we limit that, I think the best thing, if it becomes a problem, then you can censure a board member, but I think we're solving a problem
Can we
hopefully
maybe take
don't
another
have.
swing at that paragraph as administration?
Absolutely.
And
Okay,
then
thanks.
instead of going to a vote here, let us just take another swing at it and then see what we can come up with. Jada's really smart.
No.
And I would just like to say that last sentence in the second paragraph, I think that needs to stay regardless.
Yes, sir. All right, moving on. BBB, board membership elections.
I have nothing.
Well, we added the,
Oh, yeah, I have no notes.
any discussion for BBB? All right. BBBA, board member qualifications. I believe this one is straightforward. Hearing none, I'll move to BBBC, board member resignation. You will see here where we did strike through the his or her voting district and added Spartanburg School District 1. And then the last paragraph, the board requests that any member who wishes to resign provide the earliest possible notification of his or her intent so that the board may plan appropriately to fill the vacant seat. And you can see the strike through. I'm certainly open for any discussion.
I just want to say that I really like the irrevocable letter of resignation, because that, I know, was an issue in Anderson that they fought hard over. And I think if you resign and you have a date in it and you hand it in, you have resigned. That, I like that it's clear cut.
All right, moving on to our next policy, BBBD, board member removal from office. Once again, this is straightforward, primarily the law there. Hearing none, we'll move to BBBE. And I will say on this one, if you will allow me to go back and do some rewording, Ms. Baker and I spoke in length this afternoon, and I do believe that District 5 has a more updated policy than what the School Board Association has possibly provided us, because of Spartanburg County being so unique with the dissolving of the county and everybody doing separate, 7 separate districts. And so there is an Attorney General's opinion from 2021 that does state and support what this board did with the last fulfillment of the board term. And so with that practice, I feel the need to go back and rewrite this policy so that it is in line with the Attorney General's opinion, and which is basically that the board will go through an appointment process. Now, the question is, would the board like to be very specific on how the appointment of the board member is?
Mr. Chairman, personally, like Ms. Baker stated earlier, I wouldn't want to strap the hands of any future boards. I don't think that we should put a particular process in place. I mean, we chose one, it worked, and it was successful, but that may not be the pleasure of another board. So I'd recommend that we didn't put any specifics.
Yes, sir.
I like that too, because it really, you need a framework, but situations are going to be different. District 5, the only other thing that they put in theirs was just their application. And we had an application, and I don't know if we would even want to do that, but it is in their policy. They include the application and just the process for actually submitting it. But their policy basically very succinctly describes what we did, the framework for what we did.
Don't we have county legislation that is defined there that we can we have to follow that to an extent, that is county legislation by the local delegation, right?
That is correct. Unless the local delegation decides to change that, that is what we followed at the passing of Mr. Lee. And so, like Mr. Rollins said, it worked very well. District 5 has followed it as well.
If we tend to think that the county delegation's gonna remain the same or change it, and we would have to follow those particular guidelines, should we refer to the county delegation or county legislation packet, whatever the terminology is for that, that we use?
Yeah, I think, let me see if I can just read, District 5's.
Cause they reference,
So they have the, all of the acts listed. I don't know if you want me to read them, but the conflict in what the School Board Association gave us, there's a state law that says 180 days, which is what's in the policy we have. Ours is an appointment. I'll just read the District 5 policy. Purpose, to establish the basic structure for filling vacancies prior to the end of a term. If for any reason a vacancy occurs on the board will appoint a successor to fill such vacancy for the remainder of the unexpired term. The process for selecting a successor will include posting the opening through normal public channels such as district website and other district communication methods, collecting completed statement of intention of candidacy application and resume, verifying candidate qualifications through the Spartanburg County Board of Elections. During a called board meeting, either regular or special, provide a platform to interact with candidates, meeting an executive session to confidentially discuss candidates, in open session, voting to fill the vacancy. In the event another method for filling vacancies on the board is prescribed by law after the adoption of this policy, the board will utilize such method as is in effect on the date a vacancy occurs. And then they list all of the acts, and these are the ones that are the Spartanburg County that makes us so unique. It sounds, I mean, it's exactly what I think.
And this isn't part of the policy, but one of the things that I think that was important to the Lee family was that y'all willingly heard them. The opportunity to speak, and I wouldn't want to tie the hands of a future board, but even just the sentence of the board may consider allowing the family of the bereaved family to have a moment. It's not policy and it shouldn't be, I'm not saying that, but I know how much that meant to the family. And I don't think it influenced your outcome at all, but some of you have served on this board a long time, and if something were to happen, I think you and your service deserves your family member to be heard.
Any other discussion?
So we've made it through the policies that are up for a first reading. What I would like to do is have a motion to approve a first reading with the recommended changes, and there's a couple that are pretty significant, so we know that. But just to keep the process rolling, we just have a motion that recognizes those changes and give us an opportunity to, at the next regular scheduled meeting, potentially approve a second reading. If we're not ready, we're not ready. We can dive more into those, but I think just a generic first reading approval now with recommended changes would be appropriate.
I move that we have or consider this a first reading of these policies of the B section. You have them, or do I need to list them? You have the sections with the recommended changes and the recommended revisions by administration.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to approve the first reading.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second?
Second.
Ms. Fowler has a second. Is there further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you for your input.
Thank you, Ms. Tessnier. Next up on the agenda is the finance report, Ms. Lacey Brady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, Dr. Smith, fellow board members. So We have in front of you, I've given you a copy of the final draft budget for the FY 23-24 school year. This has been given to y'all and it has been posted on the website. A couple things I want to note real fast on the summary of budget changes pages. Under the other positions section, there is a typo there. The PE assistant, I had that listed as $80,000, but it's actually $50,000. These salary and fringe items for the certified positions as well as the other positions, these are average cost because the pay can fluctuate depending on the education and years of experience. So that should be $50,000. And then also I have sent you the other budgets for informational purposes, which is the Swafford budget, the alternative school, and McCarthy-Tesler. Are there any questions or discussions regarding the operational budget?
Can I ask one about McCarthy-Tesler, or do you have anything to do with that?
I don't have a whole lot. I can try to ask.
They just
Or
seem
I can
like
try to answer.
theirs had a huge jump, like an 18% jump, and I just wondered if, is that, I know they're doing construction and everything, is that related to that, or?
That I'm gonna have to ask.
Okay, it
Yeah.
just seemed like everybody else's is kind of, in the same range, and theirs is 18%. I just was curious.
Yeah, I can find out.
Okay.
I just wonder, Debbie, if it's not related to the addition of positions. I think,
What I looked is they added 10 or 7. It ended up still adding 10. They reduced 7 and then added 10, so it was still, I said that backwards, still fewer positions. They reduced the actual numbers, I thought, but I could have looked at it wrong. So I was still curious, because usually that's the bulk of an increase is human capital.
Yeah, it says on here. I can ask that. I think that's a good question. There was some inflationary increases related to contracts and utilities because they, the salaries and fringe was a pretty huge cost, for district wide, and they are using about $2 million of fund balance to balance their budget. So I can ask what's going on. Okay. Alrighty, so if there's no other questions, it is the recommendation that you approve the operations budget, and that includes the general fund, the capital projects, and the debt service.
All right, we have the recommendation from the staff. Do I have a motion?
Motion approved.
Have a motion to approve by Mr. Sloan. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Rollins. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Brady. Next item on the agenda is a proposed executive session. Do I have a motion to move into executive session to discuss proposed agreements with the City of Inman and developer regarding sewer project and indebtedness, as well as legal advice regarding options for possible legal claims by the school district?
I'll make a motion that we move to executive session.
Motion by Ms. Fowler. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Baker. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We are now in executive session. Okay, we're back in open session. We had a motion by Ms. Rogers to come out of executive session. That was seconded by Ms. Fowler, and the vote was unanimous. Do I have a motion out of the discussion in executive session?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Move that no action was taken in executive session.
Yep. A motion that no action was taken in executive session by Mr. Rollins, seconded by Mrs. Rogers. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. Do I have a motion relative to the discussion in executive session?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to authorize the superintendent and board chair to negotiate and execute agreements with the developer and the city of Inman regarding the sewer project and indebtedness, and use the fund balance to satisfy the remaining balance left on our note as discussed in executive session.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Fowler. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Mr. Sloan. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Seeing no further items on the agenda, do I have a motion to adjourn? I make a motion. Motion by Ms. Rogers, second by Ms. Baker. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We stand adjourned.
Have a good summer.
That